What we've heard today in our gospel lesson, but also what Jesus says just right after. And I think you can't, it's hard to separate these. I think you can, in some ways, have one without the other. So let me just read how Jesus continues after he's talking about the lilies of the field and the ravens and how he provides for all these, and not to worry, and not to fear, and have no anxiety. Then Jesus continues with these words. Be dressed, ready for service, and keep your lamps burning. Keep them burning like men waiting for their master to return from a wedding banquet, so that when he comes and knocks, they can immediately open the door for him. It will be good for those servants whose master finds them watching when he comes, for I tell you the truth. He will dress himself to serve, will have him recline at the table, and he will come and wait on them. It will be good for those servants whose master finds them ready, even if he comes in the second or third watch of the night. But understand this. If the owner of the house had known at what hour the thief was coming, he would not have left his house be broken into. You also must be ready, because the Son of Man will come in an hour when you do not expect him. We think of Jesus as the good shepherd. Certainly he is. We don't often think of Jesus as a thief, but here he says he will come when you least expect it. Do not worry, do not be anxious, do not be fearful, but be watchful. A year ago, my first grandson, Chase, was born, and the pictures are available in the narthex upon request. I told my daughter and her husband at that time, don't blink, before you know it, little Chase will be going off to university, and he'll be getting married, and he'll have kids of his own, and they kind of, oh yes, Dad, kind of rolled their eyes a little bit inwardly. But my mom told me the same thing when my son was born. And at the time I thought this was a kind, a quaint, maybe even a stupid comment, but you know what, she was right. Today, my son has gone through university, gone through law school. He's a lawyer working in Colorado with a daughter of his own. And I find that hard to believe. I feel like he just started crawling like a month ago. Went to kindergarten a week ago. Got his driver's license a few days ago. Seems like only yesterday, my daughter was lying on the couch, throwing food, and singing. Oh wait, that was yesterday. The great American poet Dr. Seuss. I've been reading a lot of him lately. He said, "How did it get so late so soon? It's night before it's afternoon. December is here before it's June. My goodness, how the time has flown. How did it get so late so soon?" It gets so late so soon. And we know that life is short, and yet we spend our lives as if we have 9 of them. We waste too many of our days in worry and anxiety and fear, and yet it is those very things that Jesus tells us today in our gospel. Do not fear, little flock. Look at the ravens. Look at the lilies. We recognize how wrong it is to throw a life away. Throw it away on things like worry and fear and chasing after the almighty loony and whatever. Yet we don't see how sinful it is to do the same thing an hour at a time. And each day there are 24 hours and 1,440 minutes and 86,400 seconds. And every one of those seconds is a precious gift from God. Time is something, someone said, we feel we never have enough of, yet we give it away so easily. Time is free, but it's priceless. You can't own it, but you can use it. You can't keep it, but you can spend it. And once you've lost it, you can never get it back. Life is wasted too often, minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, and it's wasted in 1,000 uncaring ways. My wife and I visited Spain about 4 years ago. It was kind of maybe 5 years ago, it was kind of a trip we always wanted to take. I always wanted to take. She was born in Madrid. I wanted to see where she was born. And in Spain, it can get very hot and humid, kind of like maybe today's going to be. And so we're walking around Madrid, and we finished the tour of the Queen Sofia Art Museum, which is absolutely beautiful. And we saw Guernica, the painting that's there and everything. And we've either walked that day 10 miles or 2 miles, depending upon which one of us you ask. And I say to my wife, well, smile, we could go to the Royal Palace and the National Assembly and be moved by all that history there, or we could go to the nearest bistro and get something very cold to drink. And the beer and the white wine was really cold that day. You know, that feeling of making a poor choice, but not caring. We know the feeling all too well. But life is too short to simply visit the Assembly Building and the Royal Palace. Life's too short for computer solitaire or watching reruns of The Big Bang Theory. I'm guilty. Life is too short to sit around moping and choosing despair and worrying what other people think. Life is too short to complain about those you don't like or look for revenge or to try to change someone else's opinion about yourself. Life is too short to be bitter over things that you can't change or to want to go back to the way things were, like, make Canada great again, or that's a political statement, sorry. Or always do the same thing. Life's too short for that. Life's too short to leave good words unsaid, or to be afraid to pray. To sum it up, life is too short to intend to live a new life, but never get around to it. I think that Jesus is telling us today not to give ourselves to things that are less than God's best for us, or surrender ourselves to the world's ideas and values. And he's saying, don't do that because, friends, life is short. They're just going to come when you least expect it. In today's gospel, Jesus' disciples hadn't figured that out yet. If you read a little bit before our correct feed day, the part we read, they debate about who's going to be first or second, and they're worrying about all sorts of administrative details. They act like they have forever to live. They worry about the wrong things. They chase what's unimportant. They run around preoccupied with details, forgetting why they started doing what they're doing in the first place. But our Lord knows that time is short. Because you see, he's on his way to Jerusalem to die. And there's a crowd of thousands that are beginning to follow him on this route to his death. And I'd like to look at what the Message translation of the Bible has to say about this particular piece of our gospel lesson from Luke, because to me it really brings it to light. Jesus says, "Don't be afraid. You have been given the kingdom. God has given you life itself. You don't have to be frightened. Be generous. Give to the poor. Get yourselves a bank that can't go bankrupt. A bank that you can bank on." It's obvious, isn't it? The place where your treasure is the place you will most want to be, and that's where you will end up being. You see, earthly possessions don't matter much when you realize that your whole life is in God's hands. God gives us eternity, so all the stuff in the world is unnecessary. And he goes on, he says, stay awake. Just stay awake. Keep the lights on. Listen to this story, he says. Some servants are busy running around doing unimportant stuff, not giving a lot of thought to the master who's gone off to get married. But when he comes back, even if it's in the middle of the night, what a celebration they'll have. He'll put on an apron, give them a seat at the table, and wait on them hand and foot, because he'll want them to see how happy he is. He'll want them to share his joy. Are they ready? Do they remember why they work in the Master's house? Do they understand the whole point is to share in the Master's joy? To live in the Master's love? Don't be distracted, friends, Jesus tells us. Just when you least expect it, God will show up. Because it's my Father's will. It is my Father's pleasure to give you the kingdom. And he wants this gift to be celebrated. Through all your sorrows and trials, whatever comes, you're going to be okay, little flock. Really reassuring words. It's kind of an age of anxiety we live in. Jesus reminds us that the value of our lives is not measured by the size of our portfolio, nor by how we may look, or by our standing in the community, not even by the amount of good that we do, but simply by this. It's measured by his love for us. Life is too short to forget that you are the very beloved of God. You, with all your foibles and warts and everything else, are the very beloved of God. Life is short. So wake up. Stay alert. Be prepared. Keep the lamps burning. Get ready. Listen for that knock. Answer the call. And serve where you've been sent. Life is too short. So listen to the people you love and tell them how much they need to you. Life is too short. So forgive. Look past the faults of others, just like you hope they'll look past yours. Life is too short. So recognize that every day, each hour, each minute is a special occasion. So do something interesting. Have some fun. And choose to be happy. A friend of mine who's really good, he's an engineer, this friend of mine. And those of you who are engineers, I married one, so I know, they're very precise people, right? Analytical, very precise people. And the personality of my friend is that every day, after supper, he's meticulous in keeping a diary. And he takes about 10 or 15 minutes. He says, I just jot down a few things. And you go back, 20 years in his life and pull out the diary and see exactly what he did that day. So one day, after supper, he wrote this down in his diary. Today I didn't feel like doing too much. So I just went fishing with Lucas. What a wasted day. Lucas was his 4-year-old son. And when my friend was tucking Lucas into bed that night, they had a little routine of saying, how was your day? And Lucas lit up. He said, today was the best day of my life. Thanks, Dad, for taking me fishing. Hardly a wasted day. Life is too short to forget God's grace in giving his Son to die for you so that we might live. Life is too short to forgive that it is his Father's pleasure to give you the kingdom. Trust in Christ with all of your heart, mind, and soul and strength, and celebrate the love of God. Get a life, for heaven's sake. Because it's later than you think. December is here before it's June. My goodness, how the time has flown. How did it get so late so soon?